time out in 2 days.
Yeah.
No place to go, you know, I'm working at home. Except at the mail, which is 2 steps outside my door.
All right, we're live. Good evening, everybody. Although I don't think anyone's here yet, but I'm probably speaking to outer space. We got a few people here in the Trinity Center. Carol's here, and Dave's here, and Marilyn's here, and Judy's not here, so we can talk about her all we want.
Carolyn, you don't need
So
to.
she might be listening.
Pardon? You don't need to.
She might be listening, but she can't talk back, so
Ah,
it doesn't matter.
There was a beautiful sunset tonight.
Yeah?
Yeah. There was.
All right.
Well, at least you're immune for 3 months.
Have you gotten your shot?
I got one,
One.
Sunday morning, that's why I was in the 8 o'clock.
All right, Erdos have come in. I'm gonna give it just another minute here. I got started a little bit late, so let everybody get a chance to come in before I start off.
Yeah, it was just by a fluke that I went to, just found it.
Mm.
It just would be-
The lined up at the door outside.
Oh, there's a line, Dave says there's a line at the door outside trying to get in, but, you know, sorry. It's a very exclusive ticket to get into the live performance.
So did you get yours?
I got the first one.
Yeah.
Week from tomorrow, I go for the second.
Okay.
Oh, you guys are important people, huh?
I gotta wait 3
I got
weeks.
very lucky.
Yeah. Well, Lombard Park District gave me an email yesterday and they started it. They were filled within an hour.
I was gonna say, by the time I got the thing, it said it was already filled. But
Yeah.
I'm at DuPage County Fairgrounds.
Okay, well, Sarah's an important person. She got hers.
Yeah.
Noah and Danya and I got ours the hard way.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. And you can't help it for a while.
Yeah.
They're still gonna recommend you get one.
Yeah,
but not for a
apparently so.
while.
They say,
The natural way, you know, it might only be good for 3 months.
yeah, they say
Yeah.
3 to 6 months
Months, yeah.
is what they're saying,
Yeah.
is the natural immunity. But I don't know, why is that? You know, it's
I don't
weird.
know, because one doctor told a friend of mine 9 months even. So, you know, it varies so much from doctor to doctor.
That's weird. Why do some viruses have like lifetime immunity? Like chickenpox, you get chickenpox, you don't get it again, ever, right?
Right.
Except you can get shingles, I guess,
Shingles,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It could be what it attacks, maybe.
No.
Because,
knows?
and they haven't probably figured out the whole process yet, you know?
Well, yeah, being a relatively, it's kind of a
Yeah.
new virus, so they
Yeah.
probably don't know yet.
I mean, they figured out chickenpox already.
Yeah,
So, even the flu we have to get every year,
right.
so,
But those are different strains, right?
yeah, those are
Yeah.
different strains, yeah, they come up from Australia. And that's how they determine what our flu's gonna be like, how their winter is like.
Oh, really?
Yes, yes, that's how they determine our flu.
So they say the first time your body gets it, it's like, it doesn't know if it's like, it doesn't take it seriously, so to speak.
Oh, yeah?
That's why they give you the second shot, because then they said second one, and your body says, hey, I've encountered this before. Now it hits you hard.
Oh,
It goes down, really, it creates an immunity.
oh,
That's why they're doing the double shot.
Huh.
The first shot don't last.
Well, just like tetanus you get every 10 years,
yeah, right, that's true.
and,
But tetanus
shingles
isn't a virus, tetanus is a
shot.
bacteria, right?
What?
Tetanus is a bacteria, not a
Yeah.
virus, right?
Yeah, correct.
Am I right, Sarah? Usually I get comments back when,
Yeah.
when I make sciencey statements. She's always so happy when I make sciencey statements. All right, let's begin. Lord God, we give you thanks for gathering us together around your word today, and we ask you, Lord, to be present with us and to open your word for us so that we can both understand it and also apply it. This we ask in your holy name. Amen. Oh, and no sooner did I pray this, I got the answer. Yep, first is a primer, second is a booster. So you got it, Dave. You get the science award for the night. And yes, tetanus is bacteria.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start off tonight with Psalm 107. Psalm 107 is where we are tonight. It's kind of a long one, but we're going to spend some time on it. If we get to Acts tonight, that's great, and if we don't, that's okay. Because
107?
107, yeah. Because 107 is an important psalm.
Stone babies.
Stone babies?
Stone babies.
Sarah, have you studied stone babies? What is a stone baby?
I just found this out too. A stone baby is when it's conceived in the abdomen and it's too big to be absorbed by the body and it calcifies.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
A
when-
baby that's conceived in the abdomen is too big
to
to be absorbed by the body and
calcifies.
calcifies.
It's called a lipopedion. L-I-T-H-O-P.
Lithop. No, please tell me about it, please. I'll let you and Marilyn discuss stone babies at some. I don't know why that has anything to do with Psalm 107. But
Well, because Sarah's online, that's why I thought.
we need to discuss stone babies. All right, so first thing to know is just a little bit of the history is that about Psalms 105 through 107, because they all play together. And we're just going to look at 107. But 105 focuses on the early history of Israel. 106 focuses on Israel from the Exodus to the exile. And 107, which is the one we're going to spend time with tonight, focuses on restoration from exile. Okay? And the Psalm's broken into to 6 parts. Sarah says, keep the science coming.
Okay. Oh, I'll give her a lot, because I like it too, yeah.
Verses 1 through 3. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he has redeemed from trouble, and gathered in from the lands, from the east, from the west, from the north, and from the south. Okay, so that's the first part. That's part 1 of 6 parts of the Psalm. Part 1 is give thanks to the Redeemer who is with us in every situation. And it's entertaining sometimes and irritating at other times the way people guffaw when I say give thanks in every situation. But I really, really mean it. Because I have seen how God brings amazing things out of every situation. And if you're failing to see the good in a situation, I propose that you're so blinded by your own opinions about how things should be that you're missing the amazing gifts that God has given you. Okay? We all have those opinions of how things should be. It's someplace it says, that's how we all think. Someplace it says, or they said, and when you ask for the reference for the place or the person, well, that doesn't matter. Yeah, Donnie used to say in her family it was always there's a group of people in Houston. They make all the decisions in the world. That's who they is. I compare it to the kid who wanted a bike for Christmas and didn't get the bike for Christmas, and Christmas is just ruined. Everything's bad. It's horrible because he didn't get his bike. And he doesn't, because he's a kid, he doesn't look around and say, oh, look, I have a family. Look, I have a warm place to sleep. Look, I have food on the table. Look at all the amazing things I have. All he's focused on is, I didn't get the bike I wanted for Christmas. And I contend that that's how we are with God a lot of times. As God's children, we all take a turn at being that spoiled brat who is throwing their hands up and stamping their feet because things didn't go the way we think they should. And that's the important, and it's it happens so much. It's just you see people who get mad at God. And they'll say, and it's really hard, and I'm not, I have, over the years, I have mellowed so much, because it was almost all I could do not to physically slap somebody who said that when I was a young pastor, because it makes me so angry when someone says, well, I'm angry with God because he didn't do this or he didn't do that. Who in the world are you to decide what God should have done, when God should have rescued you, or should have opened a door for you? God is God. If he didn't do it, it shouldn't have been done. If he did do it, it should be done. He always, and he promises and promises and promises us that he works all things for our good. He does not say all things will be pleasant. Not once did he ever say, and your life on earth will be pleasant. Sometimes we get pleasant. That's nice. I like pleasant. But that's not how all of life is. And it angers me, the way people judge God and judge, judge everybody by their standards. There's so much judgment that goes on about because of my standards. This is what I think this is how I think should be. These are the colors I think this should be, or this is the lines that I think should be here. And if you don't think so, if you disagree, then you're wrong. And another twist on that is, if you disagree, you've hurt me. You've hurt me because you didn't agree with me. No, I don't have any animosity against you if I don't agree with you. I just don't agree with you. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. None of us have a portal into the future that we know exactly everything, but we do have to make a decision, right? We have to make decisions about life. We have to decide path A or path B. And we all have the same criteria, right? Called the Ten Commandments. That's the criteria that we use for making all of those path judgments. And I've always said that if both paths are acceptable to the Ten Commandments, then it doesn't matter. Take either one. The blessings are going to be different, but their blessings will be there. If one of the paths goes against the Ten Commandments, now you got an easy answer. Don't take that one. And if you choose that one, there's going to be consequences. And if you have the consequences, don't whine. Don't whine. We all face consequences for going down wrong paths. Just back up. That's what repentance is about. Turn around, go back up, find the fork, go down the other path. That's what repentance is. And see, the thing is that's what our lives are. Our lives are a series of missteps, turn around, go back, start again. What the goal is that the stronger your faith is, the more you build your faith, the fewer times you get off the path. Well, that just makes sense, right? I just had this discussion today, is reminding someone that, here's the hand of faith, here's grace, okay? Faith grasps grace. Those two things work in tandem all the time. Faith grasps grace. Oh, Paul Pavlik just came in. Haven't seen him for ages. Hi, Paul. Over the years, I have come to pray not for specific things, but rather not my will, but thy will. He knows what's in my heart. Good point, yeah. Yeah, it's okay to pray for specific things, but I find specifics to be nebulous because I think I know specifically what I need. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to pray to God for, a green car, a new green car. Oh, that's okay. God doesn't get angry about that. That's fine with him. But the problem is that then I'm more likely to miss the beautiful red truck that he provides for me because I'm looking for a green car. Rather than to say, Lord, I need transportation. I need transportation, Lord, and I would really appreciate it if you could help me find a way to get the transportation I need. That's a more useful prayer to me. Nothing wrong with praying for the green car. If you want to pray for a green car, go ahead. But just be careful. I teach the kids, I teach them the model ACTS, A-C-T-S, to pray. Adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication. The point is you go through adoration, adoring God, thanksgiving, thanking him for everything he's given you, confession, confessing the places where you've screwed up, then you get to supplication. So after you've been through ACT, supplication is often different. Or at least it is for me. I have found over the years that supplication is different once I get through adoration, confession, and thanksgiving. And I've often used as a model praying to win the lottery. You know, oh Lord, please help me win the lottery. Okay, well, let's do this with ACT. Oh God, who has provided all things for me, the air I breathe, the food I eat, the house I live in, the car I drive, the clothes I wear. I give you, I openly admit that I have not always used the things that you've given me to the best of my ability. Sometimes I haven't paid any attention to them. Sometimes I've misused them. I've not always been as faithful a steward as I should be. But, Thanksgiving, I thank you anyway, that you haven't smoked me, you know? You haven't just thrown me out with the trash because I screw up too much. But rather, you have continued to forgive me and continued, even in my times of worst stewardship, have continued to provide for me. That I have missed far too few meals in my life. That I've never had to sleep on the street. That the things that God has provided for me. Now I'm at supplication. Okay, now that I've gone through all that, am I going to say, please give me $360 million? No, I'm much more likely to say something like, please continue to provide lovingly for me in the ways that you know that I need. Even though my sinful nature would love $354 million, because you know why we want that. So we don't have to depend on God, right? Because God's nebulous. God, you can't control him. No matter what you do, you can't control him. So that's why I want $364 million, or whatever it is these days. I don't know, maybe that's probably a low number now. It probably goes as close to $1 billion on some of them, I think.
I don't know what it is either, right?
I saw one, they were advertising something here a while back that there was 800 and some million or something like that, almost $1 billion.
Yeah, it was.
I can't even conceive of that. And if I had it, I probably would screw it up. I'd be one of those people that ruin their lives with the lottery, because that's, that's just way more zeros than I can fathom. It's just not, it's horrendous to think about it. So that's how Acts works. All right, let's look at verse 4. Some wandered in the desert wastes, finding no way to a city to dwell in. Hungry and thirsty, their soul fainted within them. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He led them by a straight way, till they reached the city to dwell in. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of man. For he satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul he fills with good things. What does that sound like? That last verse particularly. What does that remind you of? Someone else's famous words.
Yeah.
He satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul he fills with good things. The Magnificat, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's quoting, and this is the amazing thing when you look at some of the New Testament characters. They knew the Old Testament so well that it just rolled out of their mouths, And so when Peter and Paul are preaching, they don't have a Bible. They're not carrying a Bible around with them. It's all memory. They have it all memorized. All these amazing texts from the scriptures. When Jesus says, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow night, in the sermon tomorrow night, Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? He's not just making up, lines up on the cross. He's quoting Psalm 22. Jesus quotes the Bible. Yeah.
Just to carry on what you were saying earlier about always looking for the good, even the very last line, and the hungry soul he fills with good things. When you're hungry, anything's good.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah,
when you
right.
Think about it, right? When you're
Yeah.
absent of something, anything's good.
Yeah, those of us who have really never known hunger probably can't fathom that as well as people who have honestly known hunger. I just think I had a friend at the seminary who was one of the guys from Eritrea who escaped, I can't remember what was going on now in the world, but anyway, he and a bunch of guys went across the Sudan and escaped into Ethiopia, I think it was. Anyway, and he ended up becoming he is a Lutheran pastor, because that's one of the largest Lutheran churches in the world, is the Lutheran Church of Ethiopia. And so he told stories, of making that trek across the Sudan and having nothing to eat for I don't know how many days, barely having enough water to keep him alive, and talked about, I heard him talking at a thing one time about, what hunger is. And, that kind of hunger, I've never known. Obviously. I've never known it. But it's interesting that people who have known hunger, I have known a number of people who, in their childhood, really struggled with food. Well, I know that when Danya and I had foster kids, they would hoard food all the time. We would find food wrapped up in napkins, stuffed in their beds, because they were so afraid of running out of food, and it was a constant thing to tell them, "You're never going to be out of food here." Anytime, they were. I think it was amazing to them to think about going to the refrigerator and just getting whatever you want to eat. That was just an amazing revelation for them, that people actually lived that way and actually had food in their refrigerator. That's something besides a beer and a package of 2-week-old bologna or something. So the section, the 4 through 9 that we just talked about, the theme of it is deliverance of lost travelers. And the picture, of course, is Israel wandering in the wilderness. And when they wandered away from God, they suffered. That's what happens. When you wander away from God, you suffer. God warns you. There's that's hot lake of lava over there. Don't go over there. And of course, that's what we do. Is we're like the 2-year-old with the fork and the outlet. Gotta stick our fork in there to see if it's really true. But they called upon him for deliverance, and he delivered them every time. How many times in your life have you called upon God and been rescued? Think about that. Now,
I'm still here.
yeah. Now the thing is how many times have you not called upon God and still been rescued? And that's something we'll never know. You don't know what you don't know. How many times, has God rescued us, and we weren't even aware, that he was rescuing us. And it's, I hope, I don't know if we ever get to know that or not, but I really hope we do. I hope when we get to heaven, there's like a YouTube video of our lives or something that we can play and see. Oh, look at that!
There's an angel there.
Yeah, look at it. I can see him now.
Oh, yeah, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember one time, yes, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had like dozens, but I can think of a couple times when I know I called upon God and I know he provided the rescue. It's like not like an every week occurrence, because he provides so well for me. But it's rare that I have any real needs. I mean, I can say I need a new pair of shoes, or I need a new tire on the car, or something like that. But that's not a real need. That's just something that would be convenient to have, maybe, or something like that. But I'm talking about a real need when he's rescued me. I can think of several where he rescued me. Just look at this church. In a year when all of our public gatherings have been limited, we couldn't do all of our social fundraisers that we did. Our attendance has been 80 a weekend over COVID year, which is I was pretty happy with. I mean, because we dropped from 100, we were at 137 in 2019, we were at 81 or something like that in 2020, and that's not nearly the drop I was expecting. I thought it was going to be much bigger. I was thinking 50, maybe it would be at 50 or something like that for the average. It doesn't really matter, but it's something we keep track of because, but in a year like that, we finished in the black. We had a $40,000 fundraiser in December. Just, to me, that is phenomenal. that is just an example of calling upon God and Him answering. You know, we told God, hey, look, this is what we need. We made it known throughout the congregation. This is what we need. And God provided it through the people of this family. Oh, yeah, don't worry about it. I got that covered. It's been to me, 2020 was a phenomenal year of seeing God at work in His church and seeing the thing and distilling His church. What are the things that are really important? And what things maybe don't matter so much? You know, what things are we going to really focus on and spend time on? What things are kind of like, we can live without that. It's a great time for that to happen. Now, I don't mean just this congregation. I mean the church. You know, worldwide, the church. Did you have something?
No, but I was just thinking of reflecting, you know, it's a great time to reflect now.
Mm-hmm.
What just happened and, you know, where we're at today.
Right.
It's amazing.
I went to Saturday night church because I got my vaccine at 8 o'clock Sunday morning.
Oh,
And Cindy Weber, I noticed her name on the attendance sheet
Uh-huh.
several times. And I talked with her Saturday night, and she's from St. Paul's,
right,
and St. Paul's isn't open.
right,
So she comes here.
yeah.
And I thought it was great.
Yeah, it has been really nice to be a community church that we have been able to serve quite a number of people over the year. People who could not get service at their churches because their churches are closed. And so it's been a real blessing to be able to meet those people and serve those people. And it's been, you know, we whether we'll pick them up for good or not, it doesn't really matter. Because we're here to serve the family of God, whoever and wherever they are. So, yeah.
You picked up a Catholic.
Yeah, great. Look at that.
Yeah. Sue?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just, online is Pastor Matt Jennings from California.
Oh,
He says, I really appreciate that perspective because it's easy to focus on all the negatives. Yeah, and serving, Matt is a pastor who was one of my teachers when I was in Seattle. And then he went on to the seminary after I left and became a pastor, and he serves in Southern California, near 29 Palms, but not 29 Palms. Yucca Valley, is that it? I can't remember. Anyway, he serves down in Southern California outside LA as a pastor down there. Yeah, and especially if you happen to be a pastor serving in California, it's really tough.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really tough.
Yeah, we get the news.
Yeah.
We have not. Yeah, you have family out there.
I do too.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we have not had near the restrictions and the problems with community government and things like that they have. It's been very, very hard.
And the laser problem,
The what?
the lasers starting all those wildfires out there.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, thank God we don't have that here.
yeah. Right, yeah, I could use some wildfires. Melt the snow out of my driveway.
Yeah.
I'd like the just a small focused wildfire, yeah. Okay, beginning at verse 10. Some sat in darkness and in the shadow of death, prisoners in affliction and in irons. For they had rebelled against the words of God and spurned the counsel of the Most High. So he bowed their heads down with hard labor. They fell down with none to help. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He brought them out of the darkness and the shadow of death and burst their bonds apart. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of man. He shatters the doors of bronze and cuts in two the bars of iron. So that's verses 10 through 16. And the psalmist here in this is Psalm 107, remember, verses 10 through 16. Pastor Jennings is in Yucca Valley. That's where it is, near Palm Springs. Yucca Valley. So if you're ever out in Palm Springs vacationing, you got to drive over to Yucca Valley and go to church to see Pastor Jennings.
Say that.
Deliverance from imprisonment is what this section is talking about. Now, Whether he's talking about Egypt or Babylon, we don't really know. Could be either, could be both. But deliverance from imprisonment applies universally to all of God's people. Think about what kind of imprisonment God's people are in today. And you think about what, none of us, especially in this country, none of us are slaves. None of us are bound in service to anybody. But what kind of imprisonment do people face today?
Well, I think that he's kind of referring to figuratively and literally.
Right.
You know,
So what kind of imprisonment do God's people face today?
could be a medical condition,
Health,
money, financial,
yep, debt,
family,
addiction.
addiction.
Yeah. There's plenty of issues, and some of those issues we're tempted to ignore because we'll say, well, they did it to themselves, right? It's a very self-righteous, very pious statement. Well, they brought it on themselves. Okay, I understand that sometimes, if I eat all of the Bismarcks that I want to eat, and I weigh, 700 pounds, and have obesity issues, and you can say, well, you brought it on yourself. Okay, but I'm still a child of God in prison, right? Whether I brought it on myself or whether it was done to me is really of no particular concern. I'm a child of God in prison, and so do we do with that? That's really the question. What do the people of God do with the child of God who's in prison, or do with ourselves when we find ourselves in prison? Because sometimes our prisons are not public, right? Sometimes we carefully hide our prisons. We don't want anyone to know about our prisons because we're either embarrassed of our prisons, or our prisons are illegal, or our prisons are unacceptable, or whatever reason, but we hide them very carefully. Okay? But they're still there. So what do we proclaim to those people?
Know that the love of God has no bounds or barriers.
Right? The love of God has no bounds, no barriers. The love of God is not dependent upon you being free. He doesn't love you if you're free, if you live a pious and holy and righteous life. He loves you because his son died for you on the cross. And because his son died for you on the cross, rose from the dead, and promised to rise you from the dead as well, you will be set free. See, we can confidently proclaim that to every single person. The day will come when you will be free. I promise you. It might be while you still breathe air in this life, and it might be in the next life, but you will be free. I felt so bad. I had a lady one time who was confined to a wheelchair because of a horrendous accident, and she prayed all the time for healing. She started going to a healing service in another church. Okay, wait a second. I have to unlock the phone. Of course, technology is never easy. Oh yeah, Sarah says God chooses to love us. Yeah, it's his choice, not ours. Yeah. So she started going to a healing service at another church. They started gathering around her and laying their hands on her and praying for her. And she told me, she says, I know, that God's going to heal me. I just feel it. I can feel it. There's so much spirit at this church that I go to because it's not a stodgy, cold German Lutheran church where everybody's so boring and you sing those stupid, long, hard hymns and the pastors flounce around in polyester robes and they're not like Pastor Buck down there with his paisley tie and his cream-colored suit and white bucks and I put up with it and put up with it and put up with it, and I finally told her, I said, you need to understand that whether you go there or whether you come here, you are going to be healed. You are going to be healed. But it may not be according to your timetable, and you're going to have to live with that. Okay? Because God will determine when you're going to be healed. It could be in 20 minutes. you could get up out of that chair and walk out of the building and say, see, I was healed. It could be when you are resurrected. I guarantee you. You know, I can't wait for the resurrection. I'm going to get my hair back.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to get my eyesight back. You know, I'm gonna get my knees and all my joints that hurt back. You know, I get it all back. And what's more is I get to meet all of the people who I was involved with on this earth, who I was involved with because of sin. You know, the sin blocked our relationship at one level or another. I get to be with all those people again without sin. No sin. You know, my mother and father, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, my brothers and sisters, everybody. We get to be there without sin. You know, that's the real healing that we look for.
How far back do we go?
All the way.
All the way?
Sure, you talking about people who you will meet in heaven?
Yeah.
Everybody.
That I don't know here on earth?
Yeah, everybody. All the way back. Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
Moses.
Yeah, well, I
Abraham.
expected that, yeah. Okay.
I mean, we will spend an eternity searching out eternity. You know, I mean, think of all of the people who you don't know, who you will get to meet. You know, who you will be able to. I mean, all the gaps will be filled in. I don't know anything about my great grandfather on my father's side. You know, there's almost nothing written about him. You know, he was born, he died. That's all we know. And you know, my father's side never talked about anything. So, but I'll get to meet him because he was a pastor. You know, presumably a Christian. So I'll get to meet him. Verses 17. Some were fools through their sinful ways, and because of their iniquities suffered affliction. Duh. They loathed any kind of food, and they drew near to the gates of death. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. And he sent out his word and healed them, and delivered them from their destruction. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of man. And let them all offer sacrifices of thanksgiving, and tell of his deeds in songs of joy. Particularly deliverance here. Deliverance from hunger and deliverance from sickness and distress. You know, that's what he's talking about here. It is a joy to know that God heals us sooner or later. Things that we cause for ourselves, things that were of no fault of ours, and that means that whatever you suffer in this life is temporary. And that just like we can look at the people of God from our distance, right? We can look at the people of the Exodus who wandered in the wilderness how long? 40 years. Okay? So I would have been, 17 when I started my wandering. You know?
Yeah.
Think what's happened in 40 years in your life. Okay? That's how long they wandered in the wilderness. Now, during that time, all they had was the promise of God through Moses that they were going to the promised land. Right? That's all they had.
And man,
Huh?
and man.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, as far as getting to the promised land, they had the promise. They didn't have any guarantee. It wasn't like God said, okay, look, go out to the wilderness for 40 years, I'll bring you back, and here's the promised land, look at it, everybody see it? Okay, look how nice it is, there's milk and honey flowing through the water and whatever, and everything's beautiful, and off you go, but I'll bring you right back. They left Egypt, having been in Egypt for what, 400 years? 400 years. Okay, think back 400 years. 400 years takes us to what, 1621? Is that right? What is it? Huh? 1721. Is it 1721? I can't do that. 1621? I don't know. Whatever. Long time ago. When was Roanoke? 16... Yeah, something like that. So, I mean, we're talking about Roanoke, We're talking about the first settlements of this country. They had been in slavery that long. Okay? And then And then they came out into the desert, and Moses said, we're going to go to the promised land. Yeah, all right, let's go. And they take off, and they go to Mount Sinai, and then they sit for 40 days. A month and a half. They sit, doing nothing, waiting for Moses. And you know that, I mean, there's no cell phones. They can't call him up and say, hey, how are things going up there? You know? All they know is Moses left 40 days ago, so that's why they go and they get their gold together, and they say, okay, we need another guy, because this guy isn't working out.
No wonder they had so many problems.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, you got to realize that you know, we from our perspective, we sit in this catbird seat looking back and saying, well, they were so weak, they were so dumb. You know, how could they do these things? It was only 40 years. Well, 40 years is a long freaking time. You know, I mean, 40 years. I mean, it always reminds me when I first got here. Katie Magnuson was in 7th grade, I think. I think it was she was in 7th grade, and she asked me during a thing one time. She said, "How long have you been a pastor?" And when I got here, I'd been a pastor for I think 14 years, something like that, 14, 15 years, and 14 years. And I said that. She goes, "Wow. That's like a lifetime." Yeah, it is a lifetime for you, as a matter of fact. Yeah, it's your whole lifetime. Yeah, so you know, we have a perspective sometimes. We have kind of arrogance about us because we look back for 2,000 years of the scriptures and see all these things and think, oh, how could these people be so silly? But then something happens to us and we cry like little babies. You know, acting like God has abandoned us because something happened. We get sick. We lose our job. Someone we love dies. You know, bad things happen in the world, you know, and we cry like babies instead of saying, wait. Who's in charge here? God. Who knows exactly what you need? God. Who has promised that he will provide every single thing you need? God. And then we can look at the deliverance of Israel as an example. He made the promise. 40 years later, he kept the promise. Okay? He made the promise in the Garden of Eden that there would come a child of the woman who would crush Satan's head. And on the cross, he fulfilled the promise. We've got promise, fulfillment. Promise, fulfillment. All the way through the scriptures. Just amazing amounts of promise fulfillment going on. And so really, anything that happens in our lives, our question is not, why me, God? But our question is, what are you showing me here, God? What's the new adventure? A new e-ticket has just been purchased. You know, remember the I can't use that in confirmation where no one remembers what e-tickets are anymore. From Disney World. Remember when you went to Disneyland, you got the book of tickets, and you had like 10 A tickets that nobody ever wanted. And nobody cared about it. It was like the teacups, you know, the 8 ticket. And then they got progressively bigger, but the tickets got progressively less. And by the time you got to the end of the book, I think you had 1 e-ticket. If you bought, or at least the books that we could afford. You got 1 e-ticket. So you had to make the decision, what was going to be the e-ticket. But every time you have something happen in your life that seems horrible, it's an e-ticket. You know? God's saying, hey, put the lap bar down, keep your hands and feet inside the ride at all times, and here we go. You know, because you know it's going to be amazing. Because that's what all the promises you have. Sarah says, do you mean electronic tickets? Millennial. No, the tickets actually said A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
That was the
I
ticket.
remember the D one.
What's that?
Wasn't a lot of that 40 years ago, wasn't it their fault? Because,
Well, it's always
I mean,
our fault.
yeah, but I mean, I think because of something they did, the making of the idols or whatever, that they blinded for all.
Sure, but it's always our fault. I mean, you know, if I get pancreatic cancer tomorrow, yeah, anybody could look at my diet over the last 57 years and say, well, you actually dodged the bullet for quite a while. I mean, it's always our fault, eventually. You know, the decisions we make, the choices we make, And even if it's not something we can do a one-to-one correlation on, you know, I step out in the street, get run over by a bus, there's no one-to-one correlation there, but sin is in the world because it's, death is in the world because of sin. So it's always our fault eventually. And we have to be real careful because that's another thing we have a tendency or a desire to do is to say, well, we can, the people of Israel, that they were naughty. That's why they got punished. Or you can say they had to be taught. Not everything I learned in school did I enjoy learning. Okay, I did not enjoy everything. I did not enjoy math. Not once did I enjoy math. As much as Harriet Godfrey tried to make me like math, I did not like math. And I can remember getting to college because in Alabama, believe it or not, in Alabama, you have to take 4 years of math. All 4. You have to take 4 years of science, 4 years of math, 4 years of history, and 4 years of physical education. Yeah, those are the cores that you got to take. Okay, and so when I got to college, I'd already taken 4 years of math, and they only required 1 semester of math with a liberal arts degree. And I took it, and I can remember Prof. Zilke, God rest his soul. I think he just passed away. But he looked at me and he said, will I see you next semester for whatever it was, Calculus 2 or whatever? And I said, Dr. Zilke, you will never see me again except on a social basis. And I never, to be honest, I wish I had taken more math. Later on in life, I really wish I had gone ahead and taken more because now I understand how it teaches you to think differently. And I concentrated all on the letters and word side of my brain, and I let the math and science side just atrophy because I didn't like it. Boy, do that's, yeah. See,
I just can't stand writing or.
oh, see, I loved it.
No.
Nothing I liked better than an essay test.
Oh,
I would kill for an essay
I
test.
did a lot of them, but no.
Loved it because I could tell you everything I knew about the subject.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was so. Yeah, but now that's one of the regrets I have is in retrospect I would have taken much more math. I don't even think about it sometimes. I think sometime if I ever get time, I'm going to go out to COD and to pick up some advanced math classes, whatever they offer out there. I don't know. Okay, verse 23. Some went down to the sea in ships, doing business on the great waters. They saw the deeds of the Lord, his wondrous works in the deep. For he commanded and raised the stormy wind, which lifted up the waves of the sea. Just to remind you here, that they thought of the sea, the psalmist, like we think of outer space. Okay, the way we think of the unknown, there's so much unknown in outer space. Even today, with all of our technology and all of our advancement, we're jumping around because we finally got an unmanned probe to Mars. And to them, that's how they thought of the sea. They mounted up to, verse 26, they mounted up to heaven. They went down to the depths. Their courage melted away in their evil plight. They reeled and staggered like drunken men and were at their wits' ends. They cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He made the storm be still, and the waves of the sea were hushed. Then they were glad that the waters were quiet. He brought them to their desired haven. Let them thank the Lord for his steadfast love, for his wondrous works to the children of man. Let them extol him in the congregation of the people and praise him in the assembly of the elders. First of all, when you read this section of the psalm, immediately you got to remember Jesus, right? And you think about those disciples in the boat who knew this psalm by heart, I'm sure. Okay? And when he stood up and calmed the waters with a word, this psalm had to just smack him in the face like a 2x4. Right there he is. He calms the waters with a word. And the sea was unfathomable. That was the thing that was terrifying to them, to go out on the sea, because it was so uncontrollable. There's nothing you could do. You know, you were at the, I still how I feel about being in deep water. I hate deep water. I absolutely despise deep water because you're completely out of control. You know, there's nothing you, I do not enjoy, you know, swimming in deep water where I can't touch bottom, or at least I can't reasonably touch bottom. You know, if I'm in 8 or 9 feet, I don't worry about it. But if I'm in, you know, 400 feet of water, I'm not comfortable at all. I don't like it at all because you have no control. I'm not a big boater. I'm not a big fan of boating because of that. You know, it's so, I mean, you try to drive a boat. It doesn't go where you tell it to. It's sort of just like, well, I like a car. You know, you put it on the gas, you turn the wheel, it goes where you tell it to. You know,
I don't like not seeing land.
right, right. That's. I'm not sure if I would like cruising. I know some
No.
people. Some people talk about how wonderful cruising is, but I don't know that I would like it.
I liked it.
Did you?
Yeah, I liked it cruising.
I don't know. I suppose maybe to some extent it's like flying. You just put your fate into somebody else's hands. And,
I wouldn't have liked it, when my ancestors came over on those ships.
oh my gosh, yeah,
I mean, over the Atlantic, I wouldn't have liked it then.
yeah. That had to be a brutal journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So part 5 there that we just read, that's deliverance from storms. It occurs to me that probably about 90% of Christians' prayers are, "Dear God, give me," or "Dear God, help me with." You know, with the confirmation kids, we begin confirmation every week by chanting evening prayer together. That's what we do, not the whole thing, but I'd say about half of it we chant together. The opening segments, anyway. Then we read part of the catechism responsively, and then we sing a hymn. And we always do prayers. And I always make them pray. I'll do an opening little salvo, and then they have to pray. And I always tell them, when you don't know what to pray, you can always pray, "Dear God, help me with," or "Dear God, thank you for." Because there's always something you need help with, and always something you need you can thank Him for. Okay? And then Judy has added to that over the years by giving them prayer sticks for the kids who are not with us. And they can pray for them, that they'll be able to come be with us. What's interesting to me is when they start in 6th grade, it's almost always, "Dear God, give me, dear God, help me. Dear God, give me, dear God, help me." And as they evolve over the years of praying, the prayers are really interesting. How much more in depth they become, you know. So prayers of deliverance, you know, I think that's something that we grow in as we pray, understanding that deliverance might come in ways that we're not expecting. Deliverance might not be extracting us from the situation, but might be teaching us something that's valuable. Okay. And so, what we don't want to be is we don't want to be like the teenager who never talks to his parents except when he wants money. You know, that's very, very irritating when the only time you ever hear from somebody is when they want money. You know, you probably have somebody in your family like that. You know, everybody, it seems like everybody does, where you see their name come up on the phone, okay, well, get out the checkbook. Here we go again. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes to feel as though the only reason they're contacted is because they have something to offer that you need. How much would you love to hear from that person and say, "Hey, just thinking of you. How are you doing?" It'd be so refreshing. Well, God feels the same way. God feels the same way with us. We get that from God. All of those kinds of things that we understand, we get from God. Is that God wants us to speak to Him in not just "Dear God, give me," or "Dear God, get me out of this," or "Dear God," but rather, "Dear God, I want to understand this. I know this is what you say, and here's what I'm trying to grasp," and have that kind of conversation. The kind of conversation that a teacher loves to have with a student when you see light bulbs go on, and it's so exciting when a student, a light bulb goes on, and you finally say, "Wow, they listened to something." The one thing I said, they listened. Yeah, one thing. Might be only be one thing. I'm happy.
I know.
And that's the kind of conversation God would like to hear too. Okay, and then moving on to the last section, which is, it's called a meditation on God's providence. That's the last section of the psalm. Beginning at verse 33. He turns rivers into a desert, springs of water into thirsty ground, a fruitful land into a salty waste because of the evil of its inhabitants. He turns a desert into pools of water, a parched land into springs of water. And there he lets the hungry dwell, and they establish a city to live in. They sow fields and plant vineyards and get a fruitful yield. By his blessing they multiply greatly, and he does not let their livestock diminish. When they are diminished and brought low through oppression, evil, and sorrow, he pours contempt on princes and makes them wander in trackless wastes. But he raises up the needy out of affliction and makes their families like flocks. The upright see it and are glad, and all wickedness shuts its mouth. Whoever is wise, let him attend to these things. Let them consider the steadfast love of the Lord. The whole closing section is about the amazing awesomeness of God and how he attends to his people and raises them up when it's time and lets them suffer when it's time. Okay? That suffering is not a bad thing. Suffering is a useful thing. Just like pain is a useful thing. None of us like it. I don't know anyone who enjoys it. I think that's mental illness if you enjoy it, you know. But it's useful, right? I mean, you talk to somebody, some people have that condition where they can't feel pain, and they have to be phenomenally careful because they'll burn their hands on the stove and not know it, you know, until they smell burning flesh, you know. This end of this psalm just makes me think about the fact that, you know, your heart, how many times does your heart beat a day? Something like 100,000 times a day, something like that. And over the course of a lifetime, millions. And it does it all by itself, nothing you have to do. And while I love science, that was God that did that, not some scientist somewhere. Science is trying to understand how it works, and so far we haven't been able to figure it out. You know, how does it work? How do you create a human heart? We've created mechanical hearts that sort of do the job, but not successfully, because people don't live for about, I don't know how many, 5 years now. I think they can live with a mechanical heart, maybe less. Just amazing. Think about the fact that there are 7.5 billion people on this world, and everybody has enough water to drink, you know, on a given day to keep them alive. Most of the time. I mean, there might be some examples of drought where people die of thirst, but overwhelmingly, 7.5 billion people have water to drink. Even think about the 350 million in this country who have faucets, where water just comes out of. I'm reading a novel called Burn-In, and it's about artificial intelligence, and it's a futuristic novel. And one of the things that it brings up over and over and over again is how all the resources have dried up, except for the rich. And you know, if you can afford the resources, then you know that's great. But how important those resources that everybody just took for granted, how important they are, you know. And what I think of is I think probably the tenet of the novel would be, we got to be careful about taking care of the earth and making the resources last forever, and that kind of, maybe that would be, I don't know what the author would say, but what I think of is, geez, how blessed are we that we can walk to a faucet and pull water out and as much as we want, you know, what a huge blessing. From the complexity of the human brain to the simplicity of a virus, this world is amazing. Sarah says, learning all the intricacies of a developing embryo and how we don't end up horribly misshapen Makes me wonder how people don't believe in God.
Oh, I know. I
You look
know.
at that,
Yeah,
how does
that little baby.
that happen? From two cells, and it develops into a human being without anything, without any doctor doing anything.
One cell, but.
Yeah,
And how much is
yeah,
determined
however it works.
By that,
Huh?
how your future is determined by what, how.
Yeah.
yeah, how
Right.
DNA works.
DNA,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's where we're stopping tonight. We'll pick up at chapter 8 of Acts next week. Let's close the blessing. The Lord bless us and keep us. The Lord make his face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. The Lord lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. Amen. And we especially welcome Pastor Jennings and Paul Pavlik for joining us tonight from Pennsylvania and California, and everybody else who is with us. Look forward to seeing, and Sarah from Kentucky. I heard the phone beep. I know what it's going to say. All right, have a great evening.
Hi, Sarah.
Good night.